Welcome to the Adventist Music Podcast. This is a show that shares the stories of Seventh-day Adventist musicians from around the world. I'm your host, Kahn. In today's episode, we'll explore another musician's story. This time, we'll explore the music of Reuben Hall. You'll hear his personal experience as a music composer and performer. You don't want to miss it. He's traveled and lived in Taiwan, United States, and studied at AUP. He currently lives in London, England, and he works as in IT, but his real passion is music, right?
Yes, my real passion is definitely music.
So he writes and arranges for church ensembles and individuals. But before we jump into that though, make sure you follow us on Instagram and share the podcast with a friend. How would you like to partner with me in supporting Adventist musicians? Consider giving a donation today. It'll help me to do more for the community. So thanks a lot for your support. Now for today's episode with Reuben Hall. So Reuben, can you share with me who you are and where you're from?
Thanks, Kahn. Yes, so I am Reuben Hall. I currently live and work in London, England. Yeah, I would say I'm a pretty big music lover and music creator as well.
So you live in London and in England. Tell us a bit about like your journey, because I know you didn't start in London, right? You started. You've been around. Let's just put it.
I've been around. Yes.
Yeah.
I was born in the UK, in the East End, sort of outside of the east of London. But I've lived in a few different places in England before my family moved to the US when I was aged 13. And we were there for about 7 years, and I finished high school and started 2 years of university. But then, due to some immigration issues, my family and I had to move, and so we settled on Taiwan, and we eventually moved to Taiwan. Because I was already halfway through my degree, I needed somewhere to study that taught in English and had the same or a similar degree to what I was studying. And the university that I found was the Adventist University of the Philippines. And so that is where I finished my degree.
Tell us a bit about like what led you to choose the Adventist University of the Philippines, and what attracted you to that university.
To be honest, I didn't really have too much of a choice because the choices available to me were studying in Australia, but the cost of that would have been quite high, or learning Chinese and studying in Taiwan, which would have delayed my graduation even longer because I would have had to spend a year learning Chinese or so and then entering the program. I feel like it was the best decision at the time, even though it seemed to me as the only plausible or possible decision to make.
So take us back to the time when you're, before you even decided to go to AUP, I guess, like that, and tell us like what inspired you to really decide to go study at university. Take us back to the time when you felt inspired to be a musician.
So I think I've always grown up with music in the house. My dad is a church organist and pianist, and ever since I remember, I've been involved with music at home and also at church. The church I grew up in the city of Birmingham in England was quite well known, and even now is still quite known for its music and its musicians who come from there. And my very first violin teacher was a member of that church, and he was also in charge of music education for the entire city of Birmingham. I've always been in an environment that had music around it, and so I must have been 3 years old or around that age when my parents apparently jokingly asked this person to teach me violin, and before you know it, I was marching up and down the house with a sponge and a ruler under my chin, which is what you use to teach the correct posture for violin. I don't remember my first encounter with him, but he's been a family friend for the longest time. So yeah, it's not something that I vividly remember at all.
Okay, so what was an encounter that you do remember? If it wasn't your first one, mm, was there also, like, maybe in addition to that, was there anybody else who helped to encourage your passion as a musician?
I think every music teacher that I've had over the years has inspired me in some way. Um, I remember before I was 11 years old, so maybe around 9 or 10 years old, my teacher at the time was working at a music school in the southwest of England. And this school is quite famous for developing musicians who then go on to be quite quite famous, quite well known. And so I think being in that environment with a teacher like him really gave me ideas on where I could take my musicianship in the future.
You were 9 or 10, and this is like a professional music school that you were attending at the time.
I wasn't attending it just yet. I did join the school when I entered year 7 in England, which is between age 11 and 12. So once when I did enter that school, I had people around me who had very high levels of musicianship, even though they were still quite young. And so I feel like that environment really helped me to, one, hone my skills, and number two, gain inspiration from everyone around me at once. So that was a really treasured time for me.
Was there like a experience that you had there that really still stands out to you that maybe had shaped you as a musician and the work that you're doing now?
Okay, I'll explain a bit how the school day worked. So school started at around 9 something in the morning, and then by about 4 o'clock or so, that was the final lesson of the day. Then after that, we had what was called, I can't remember what it was called, but it was basically a time for studying or doing homework. So they would open one of the classrooms, and everybody would just be sitting there quietly doing their work. Not me, though, because I would often go down to the music building and go to the music technology lab and open up Sibelius, which is a software for writing music, and just play around there. So quite often I skipped on my homework to go and learn how to write music. I think that actually really did shape me and help me to become the kind of musician that I am now.
How old were you at that point?
11 or 12.
Wow, dude, like that's so crazy. You're 11 and 12 and you started with using Sibelius.
Yes, and it wasn't just me, it was all the other people in my year level as well.
Oh, wow. They really start you early in Britain, don't they?
Yes, and they really do.
So I can see that it definitely has impacted the stuff that you're doing now. 'Cause
Yes, definitely.
you're very active in terms of composition. And I would like to go there with you and, explore some of the stuff that you're doing currently.
Okay.
What has been like the most memorable project that you've worked on so far?
It would have to be the Christmas song that I have released on Spotify. It was 2019, and somebody asked me to play at a Christmas concert, and I was looking around for a piece to play, but couldn't really find one that would be suitable. So I thought about just arranging the hymn Gesù Bambino, which is Italian for the baby Jesus. And yeah, so I arranged that for violin and piano. And I always like to throw in some different chord progressions, but I always like to do it in a in a tasteful way. Yes, I arranged it for that performance, but then it wasn't until about a year later during COVID, during lockdown time, when I decided it might be a good idea to record this. So I created a click track or a metronome track, and sent it to a friend of mine who's a pianist. And she recorded the piano part, and then I recorded the violin part and mixed it together on my old Windows laptop. Somehow it didn't give up the ghost. And yeah, then I did a quick master session on it and just sent it out to the distributor to distribute it to the stores. Now, this is it's memorable for me because it was, I guess, my first commercially released project that I had worked on by myself. I had previously worked with other artists for writing orchestrations for their albums, and those were also available on the streaming sites and the stores as well. But this was the first thing that I had done basically entirely by myself. I had taken a public domain hymn and reimagined it into my own, and then recorded it and released it all on my own. So for that, I'm very proud of myself.
What feeling did you put into that piece of music?
So I always look into the text of a song because most of what I do is instrumental. So I need to be very careful. I need to be very careful about portraying the message of the lyrics across in the instrumental music. And I use multiple different things. I try to use as much of the musical palette that's available. For example, if it's a piano, I will use up the full range of the lowest notes up to the highest notes to try and create different feels around the different types of the music. For example, in the hymn Gesù Bambino, there's a line which talks about the angels singing in heaven. So for that, I had some arpeggios in the piano which went from low up until high, like digga 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 digga, something like that. That kind of evokes a feeling of celestial beings. And yeah, so I like to use as many tools, sonic tools that are available to me with each instrument.
What would you say is your favorite sonic tool to use?
Pedal tone. A pedal tone is where you have a bass note, as in the lowest note in a chord, that stays the same across multiple different chords. This adds tension, and it causes the listener to always be waiting for where the resolution is going to come. And oftentimes I will delay that resolution for as long as I can so that the eventual release of the tension is a very satisfying release.
Can you give us any examples and any compositions that either you have made or that you have heard that uses that type of?
The composer Johann Sebastian Bach uses that a lot in his organ, especially in his organ music. Even in his piano music, like the very famous prelude, which is arpeggios, like da 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 da. That one at the very end, there for a few bars, there's a pedal tone where the bass note stays the same, but as in the left hand note stays the same, but the right hand notes change the chords. That's another example I can think of a pedal tone.
And have you applied that in your songs?
I think I use it quite liberally, to be honest, because it's an easy tool to use, I think, and it's very versatile as well. For what I currently do, I don't usually use pedal tones too much because I have been doing a lot more of writing strings for use with band as well. So for those kind of projects, I've already got the chord progressions, and so I have to stick with those. But when it's music of my own, for example, I've done some string quartet arrangements of hymns. Often, I still like to use it for those as well, because it can create a grander sort of sound as well. Yes, so I do use it quite often, even in my string quartet arrangements.
So you mentioned that you do some arrangements as well, like professionally, right? Like that's something that you're currently doing. You're making arrangements for other people. Can you tell us like a bit about like some of those projects that you are currently doing or that you have worked on?
Yeah, so one project that I worked on last year in August 2024 was a song called Real by the group His House Worship. They're a London-based gospel group, and they released their debut single last year. While they were still in production, they asked me to write the strings for the song. So they sent me a demo, which was basically just the voices and piano, some of the drums, not all of it, but because that had not been recorded yet. They sent me that, and the producer also sent me about 15 WhatsApp voice notes saying, I want this here, da, 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 literally like that on some of the notes, on some of the voice notes. And so, yeah, I effectively had to try and dissect what he meant and turn it into something legible. So a lot of my process for coming up with ideas, well, funny enough, a lot of the ideas come from the shower. I'll be taking a shower and singing through the song in my head and trying to sort of play around with ideas in my mind. And then I'll sit down at the piano and I will just start playing around, noodling, or I think some people call it widowing. And if every now and then I'll have an idea that will stick, and I will either record it or write it down somewhere. And yeah, so then eventually I will start to basically piece all the bits together. I always try to make sure that there's a clear direction that the music is going in. It needs to go up to a climax, and then it needs to come back down from the climax. So with that in mind, I go wild with the creativity, send it off back to the producer. If he likes it, that's good. If he doesn't, well, he will tell me what to change, and I will change it. The thing with this though is that it's always a collaborative effort. It's never just me. It's always me and the producer. So I have to work with him. There's some ideas he might have which I hadn't ever thought of, and there's some ideas that I have that he would never have thought of. So it's always a conversation that goes back and forth, and eventually there will be something that everybody agrees on.
But even the songwriters like Fanny Crosby and like all these beautiful composers, I mean like songwriters, they work with people who are composers. You know what I mean?
Yes.
They still have that relationship as well.
Yes, they do. Yes. So I always believe that there's more power in collaboration and teamwork with other musicians and songwriters and even just artists in general.
If there was one artist or one anybody, producer, musician, that you would like love to make a project with, could be in the Adventist church, in the Christian world in general, who would you like to work with?
I'll start with the Adventist church. There is a UK-based artist called Naomi Parchment. She went to Oakwood University. She's now living back in the UK. Yeah, she's one artist that I would love to work with on any project. In fact, there were some conversations on Instagram which I should probably follow up on. Yes, but yeah. So she's definitely one person within the Adventist church. Another group would probably be Clay. They're a jazz vocal ensemble based on the East Coast in the US. I've heard some of their recordings, and I would absolutely love to do something like orchestral with them. Outside the Adventist church, like in the general music industry, I think Jacob Collier would probably be somebody I would love to collaborate with, just because he understands the power of collaboration. His previous album, I think 90% of the songs were collaborative with other artists. It's quite a high number. So yes, definitely him.
Let's shift gears here a little bit. How would you encourage other people who are listening, who are into Adventist music, to encourage and support Adventist musicians?
I think the best way to support not just Adventist musicians, but musicians as a whole is, first of all, listen to their music. If they have any live concerts or live events, definitely try your best to go there. Those are the kind of events that will actually generate a lot more income for musicians. It's difficult as a musician if you're only relying on streaming for income, because I saw a Reddit post the other day which explained that for every stream on Spotify, an artist gets paid about 17 lentils or something like that.
Lentils?
Yes, they did the equivalent, and it's about 17 lentils per stream on Spotify. So it takes a lot to get something from there.
To make a curry. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, to make a whole dal, it would, you'd need a few 100,000 streams, and it is difficult, especially if you are a small independent artist. Yes, definitely. Go out to see the artist. If they're performing in a church nearby, go to see them. Or if your church has the budget for it, invite them to come over and do a concert there. And lots of churches like to do love offerings, so you can also collect an offering that could be given to the artist. All of these things can help support Adventist musicians.
Let's talk a bit more about that. In terms of live events, do you have an experience in doing those?
Yes, I do actually. So the group His House Worship that I've worked with, I realized recently that I've been involved in basically every single concert that they've done since they started effectively. The first concert was, I wasn't actually in the country, but I helped with writing the string arrangements. But after then, I've been in a string quartet that has always been with the band. So we did, on average, we do about 2 concerts a year. So it's usually an Easter time concert and then a Christmas concert. The popularity of the group has grown considerably. I think the last big event we did was 800 tickets and they sold out completely. Even people were asking me, "Oh, do you have a spare ticket?" And I said, "Sorry, I don't have any." Yeah, so that I've worked with them. I've also, like, outside the Adventist church, I've worked with another gospel group who did a live album recording. So I was in the music videos for those as well. And then back within the Adventist church, there are, within the UK, there's quite an active music scene. The conference has both of the conferences in the UK have music directors, and they are very supportive of people who want to get their music out and heard by the rest of the church. Yeah, we're fortunate to have a network of people, of artists as well, even sound engineers who are able to come and help with these concerts, which is very necessary. We often forget about the small details, but we even have people who specialize in event management as well. And these all when the whole team comes together, then it's really, really good and creates something a memorable. It creates a memorable live event experience for the attendee.
Have you found that to be a success? Like, has that been a successful way to promote your music, promote the musicians' music in the conferences there?
Yes, I think so, because the first time, so going back to the Christmas song that I have released, which until now is still the only thing I've got on Spotify. Don't worry, more things are coming soon. But my first time performing that live, not the first time when I wrote it, but after I recorded it, the first time I played it was at a conference event. It was a youth event. It was a Christmas banquet, actually. They asked me to play, and I thought, what better piece to play than this thing I've already produced? So I just took out or muted the violin track and made it into a backing track. And yes, I played that there. And actually, one of the now conference music directors was there, so he was running the sound, so he was able to help with that, and that's how I got to know him. And yeah, so I've been collaborating with him ever since. We've done quite a few events together. He's also a keyboard player and producer. So his name is Ainsley Johns. Yes, yeah, he's based up in the north of England.
You mentioned that that's the first track that you have on Spotify, and tell us a bit about like that process of putting your music up on Spotify. Maybe some of the listeners or the musicians don't understand how they can achieve that.
Yeah, so the simplest way to release music onto Spotify is to work through a distributor. Well, the distributor will submit your song to all of the stores that they work with. And I think at this point there's about 700-ish outlets that that music can be released through. Everybody knows the big 4 or 5 it is: Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, Tidal even. But there's other ones. There's Instagram, there's TikTok. We don't think about those as well. Even now, I get notifications every now and then that my song "Gesù Bambino" was used in one or in a reel or a TikTok video. So yeah, so the distributor will be the one who will submit your song to all of these different stores.
What's the benefit of using a distributor like that? Can't you just like submit your own music to them?
You can't submit your own music to Spotify. It has to be done through the distributor, because the distributor will be able to collect the royalties that are earned from every time your track is played.
Right, because you can't. No, Spotify won't let you just knock on their door and say, "Hey, give me my royalties."
No, not unless you run your own distributor.
Okay.
But no, it's a lot more complicated than that.
When you talk about royalties, like, and that your distributor collects your royalties, what are you talking about?
So every time that a track is played on Spotify or listened to on YouTube or even used in an Instagram reel, a small payment is paid towards the owner of the track. Yes, the 17 and a half lentils. If you get say 5,000 plays on a song, you might earn a few pounds from Spotify or Apple Music or Tidal, which I think pays the highest at the moment. A distributor like DistroKid will collect all of those royalties into one place. You can withdraw them, I think, every 6 months or so. That's when you can withdraw them. Royalties is how artists earn money, basically. So the organization that licenses, for example, restaurants to play music will distribute royalty payments out to the artists depending on how many times the songs have been played in a restaurant.
So today we talked about like two things, that different mediums or streams of avenue which musicians can have, like doing the live events, like what we talked about, and of course through streaming and royalties. Is there anything else, any other ways that we can support Adventist musicians as a church?
Yes, so there's another way, and I have a friend who started a company that fills in the need for church music or church musicians to write songs that can be heard in church and also earn a living from there. So this company works with CCLI, which is Christian Copyright Licensing International, and another big publishing company. Together, these companies will work together to distribute payments for songwriters in church. So I'll give you an example. You write a song, a worship song for church, and you sing it in church. Ideally, you would want to be compensated for your work as a songwriter. So you register your song with your local rights organization. Every country has an organization that's in charge of music rights. And then after that, the church will report, or the church should report their song usage to the organization CCLI. In the UK, I would say many churches report their songs to CCLI. Within the Adventist church, not so much. We have about 300 churches, but a very small percentage actually report. So I think some work is being done to rectify this, at least within the UK. I can't speak for the rest of the world because every country is different, but there is some work to be done in terms of rectifying this problem, so that Adventist songwriters can, earn what they're due and what they're owed.
Yeah, and that's ultimately what we want for the Adventist musicians. We want to create an environment for them to be self-sustaining and where they can thrive in their trade, just like any other trade.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's why Adventist music exists, to support you in your musical journey and whatever capacity that God has called you to do that, to thrive. And through these three avenues, you can also do that. I guess that brings us to a close of this podcast. Thank you so much for coming on to the episode and for talking with me, Reuben.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, we're from my house in Kuala Lumpur. Thanks a lot for coming all the way from London to here to talk with me today.
It's been wonderful, and hope to do this again sometime. Thank you.
Well, a huge thanks to Reuben for coming onto the show. It was produced by me, Kahn Elmers, and we'd love to stay in touch with you on social media. So if you're a musician, make sure to tag us on your reels. We'd love to share them on Instagram, and also give me a message on socials. I'd love to chat with you. Adventist Music is a podcast that highlights the unique stories of Adventist musicians. We are listener supported, and you can give today and help us continue making these episodes for the community. Make sure you're listening in on the next episode of Adventist Music.